An empire that stretched from Greece to India, from Egypt to Arabia, with the largest army the world had ever seen. A small band of nomadic pastoralists from Central Asia transformed into the most powerful empire on earth. Hello and welcome to Daily History. Today we will understand how some nomadic groups became the rulers of the known world, and how this major superpower made its end after all. The Achaemenid Empire was created by nomadic Persians that arrived in what today is Iran at around 1000 BC, settling in the northwestern part of the region. The Persians were originally nomadic pastoralists, initially rulers of the Elamite city of Anshan. For a long time the Persians were a subject of the ruling powers in Iran, especially the Assyrians. Around the 7th century BC, the Median Empire, the first empire of Iranian origin, rebelled and played a major role in overthrowing the Assyrian government, becoming the leading power of the region for a short period. In 553 BC, the then ruler of the city of Anshan, Cyrus II, revolted against the Medes, defeating them 3 years later and assuming control of the entire Median Empire, renaming it the Achaemenid Empire. However, by inheriting the region, he also inherited the territorial conflicts the Medes had had with both Lydia and the New Babylon Empire. King Croesus of Lydia, taking advantage of the situation, advanced in what had been Median territory in Asia Minor. Cyrus led a counterattack that not only fought off the Lydian armies, but also led to the capture of Sardis and the fall of the Lydian kingdom in 546 BC. Simultaneously, many tributaries to the Median Empire revolted against Cyrus. That forced Cyrus to fight wars against Central Asian kingdoms, defeating the rebels and establishing several garrisons in Central Asian towns. In 539 BC, Cyrus started a campaign against the Neo-Babylon Empire, capturing the city of Babylon in October of the same year and annexing the region into his empire. In 530 BC, after creating the largest empire of the time, Cyrus died on a military expedition in Central Asia, being succeeded by his eldest son, Cambyses II. Cambyses kept adding new lands to the empire, subjugating Phoenicia and Cyprus in 525 BC, and in the same year capturing the Egyptian Empire, the wealthiest region of the time. Records claim that he also planned a naval invasion of Carthage itself, but it was cancelled because the Phoenicians refused to take up arms against their own people. Cambyses also added other smaller kingdoms into the Achaemenid Empire, before dying just a couple of years after the conquest of Egypt. His successor was none other than Darius I, mostly known as Darius the Great. Darius conquered lands in the Caucasus, the Hindu Kush, parts of modern-day Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, eastern Libya, and most notably, in 513 BC, he started an offensive in Europe against the Macedonians. The Macedonian king surrendered his country to the Persians just a couple of years later, with Darius also subjugating several Thracian people, and virtually all the regions that touched the European part of the Black Sea. 12 years later, the Ionian Revolt broke out on the western coast of Asia Minor against the Persian rule. The revolts lasted from 499 to 493 BC, being completely subjugated by the Persians, but with King Darius vowing to punish Athens and Eritrea for their military support on the revolt. He decided to embark on the conquest of all of Greece, firstly re-subjugating Thrace and Macedon into the empire. However, in 490 BC, the Persian forces were defeated by the Athenians in the Battle of Marathon, and Darius would die before having any chance to launch another invasion of Greece. Xerxes I, son of Darius, vowed to complete the job. He organized a massive invasion aiming to finally conquer Greece. Even completely outnumbering the Greeks, the Persians suffered a decisive defeat in the Battle of Salamis and later in the Battle of Plataea. That encouraged the Greek cities of Asia to revolt once more, resulting in the loss of all Persian territories in Europe. In the following decades, the empire started a cultural phase, with more investments in technologies and discoveries in science. From a military perspective, the only major event in the period was the independence of Egypt in 402 BC, remaining independent until it was reconquered in 343 BC and annexed into the empire once more. The Achaemenid Empire would start its fall in 334 BC, with Alexander the Great's invasion of Asia Minor. The Persian Empire wasn't as strong as it had been the century before, especially because of constant civil wars and rebellions, but it was still a force to be reckoned with. Alexander the Great defeated the Persian armies at Granicus, followed by Issus and lastly at Gaugamela, with all Achaemenid territories being integrated into the Macedonian Empire, giving an official end to one of the finest empires in history.